Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a huge new trend called vibe coding. This is where developers are basically just asking AI to write code for them. Yeah, it's incredibly fast, it's powerful, but is it safe? Well, a new investigation suggests we might be building our digital future on a foundation that's frankly full of holes.
I mean, just think about it for a second. An AI can whip up a fully functional app in minutes. But what if all that speed comes at a really high price? What if the code it's writing is secretly riddled with security flaws that we just can't see? That's the big question we're digging into today.
So let's get into it. This whole new way of building software, vibe coding, it's completely changing the game for developers.
And they call it vibe coding for pretty good reason. You're literally just giving the AI a vibe. Instead of carefully writing out every single line of code, a developer can just say, hey AI, build me a login page or add a secure way to upload files. And the AI, this large language model agent, just does it. It turns that simple request into real working code.
And look, this isn't some niche thing for a few tech pioneers. A recent survey found that a staggering 75% of developers are already using these AI tools. This is not some future trend, you guys. It's a full-blown revolution that's happening right now. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's probably just for side projects or for beginners, right? Nope. Think again. This quote is from Anthropic, one of the top AI companies on the planet. They're openly saying they use vibe coding for their own live production systems. The very people building these AIs are using them in exactly this way. This right here, this is the perfect analogy for the problem we're talking about. The AI is like a brilliant assistant who can build you this beautiful, perfect house in a single day. The lights work, the plumbing's flawless, everything looks amazing. But it's so focused on making it functional that it completely forgets to put locks on the doors. It does what you ask, but it doesn't think for a second about how someone might try to break in. So, the big question is, just how insecure is this AI-generated code really? To find out, a group of researchers decided to basically put these AI agents on trial with a super tough, real-world security test. So a lot of what we're talking about today comes from this amazing research out of Carnegie Mellon University. They created a brand new benchmark, and they called it SUSV IBES, which is designed for one specific purpose, to hunt down security flaws in AI-generated code. And this test, it's a total game changer. Just look at this table. See, previous tests were pretty limited. They just look at a single function or maybe one file. But SUSV IBES, it throws an entire software repository at the AI, forcing it to edit multiple files, just like a real developer would. And it covers 77 different kinds of security weaknesses, which is way, way more than the old benchmarks. Okay, the way they set up this test is it's brilliant. Seriously. First, they find a real security fix that a human developer pushed to GitHub. Then they basically rewind time. They go back to the version of the code before the fix, when it was still vulnerable. They delete that entire broken feature, and then they turn to the AI and say, okay, build this from scratch. It's the ultimate test, right? Does the AI make the exact same mistake the human did, or does it actually build something secure? All right, so the stage is set. The AI agents are put through this incredibly tough real-world test. And the results? Well, they were a mix of wow, that's incredible, and uh-oh, that's really alarming. Okay, let's start with the good news, because there is some. The best performing AI agent was able to create code that actually worked 61% of the time. And that's actually pretty impressive. It means most of the time, the AI successfully built the house. It did the job it was asked to do. But then, you see this number. And this is the gut punch. Only 10.5% of the AI's solutions were both functional and secure. This is the single most important takeaway. The AI is fantastic at building things that work, but it's absolutely terrible at building things that are safe. This chart, this chart says everything you need to know. That big tall bar on the left, that's all the code that works. That tiny little bar on the right, that's the code that's also secure. That massive gap between them, that's the danger zone. It's a gigantic security blind spot for these AI tools. Let me just rephrase that so it really, really sinks in. If you took a piece of working code generated by the best AI agent in this study, there was an over 80% chance it had a security vulnerability. That is a terrifying number for anyone putting this code out into the real world.
And look, we're not just talking about some abstract theoretical risk here. In one case, an agent had to rebuild a password function. The code it spit out looked totally fine, but it had this really subtle flaw called a timing sidechannel. Basically, the code took a tiny bit longer to process a wrong password for a username that didn't exist versus one that did. That tiny difference in time is all an attacker needs to figure out which usernames are real, which is, step one in hacking an account. Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking the same thing the researchers were. Well, can't we just tell it to do better? Can't we fix this with a better prompt? I mean, it seems like the obvious fix, doesn't it? What happens if we just add, "Oh, and by the way, please make it secure," to our request? Well, the researchers tried exactly that. They started giving the AI hints about security. And the results were definitely not what you'd expect. So they tried it. They prompted the AI to really focus on security. And something weird happened. Sure, the code it wrote was a little more secure, but its ability to write code that actually worked plummeted. So in the end, the total number of solutions that were both working and secure actually went down. See, it's this incredibly tricky balancing act. When they told the AI to obsess over security, it overcorrected. It got so wrapped up in adding security checks and balances that it failed to deliver the basic feature it was asked to build in the first place. It proves that just changing the prompt isn't going to be a magic fix. So all of this brings us right back to where we started. Based on this really important research, what's the final verdict on vibe coding? The fundamental problem here is that these AI agents, they're built to do one thing really well: produce code that works. They're not optimized for safety. They create this convincing illusion of a perfect solution while hiding these really serious risks that are super easy for a developer to miss. So what are the big takeaways here? What do you really need to remember from all this? First, AI coding tools are incredibly powerful, but they have a massive security blind spot. Second, and this is crucial, just because code works, that does not mean it's secure. Third, you can't just tell the AI to be more secure and expect it to work. And finally, for now at least, human expertise and careful review are absolutely essential. And that leaves us with one last big thorny question. As this tech gets baked into everything we do, if an AI writes insecure code that leads to a huge data breach, who's to blame? Is it the developer who used the tool? The company that built the AI? It's a really tough question, and it's one we're all going to have to answer, probably sooner than we think. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.